12:01, call to order. Could we have a roll call and introduction? Steph Dunbar-Coe from Molokai and Oahu.
Bessie Kinnaman from Kauai.
Roy Abe, Oahu.
Les Segundo staff.
Okay. We have quorum, albeit with Michelle absent. Okay, well, hopefully you all had a chance to look at the agenda that I put together. Onauna and I talked about the need to have an annual report committee meeting today and to take our discussion and recommendations from today. Oh, you made it.
Sorry.
Hey.
Hi, sorry about that.
No, and we're so glad you made it. We've been told that your flight was delayed.
It was delayed, then we had to get food and then,
Yeah,
we're here, we're good.
okay, awesome. Would you mind just saying your name?
Michelle Beth.
Awesome. Glad you guys made it. Okay. So we had just started, Michelle, so you really did not miss a thing. But just sharing that Onauna and I had a chance to discuss following our conversation that she and I had with Scott. On getting clarity, and really finalization on the direction of the annual report this year, given especially the turn of events that have happened over the last couple of months with OPSD not having an annual report requirement. So I just wanted to hold a little space, and this is agenda item 2, to just see if anybody had any questions on that front. But our understanding, and this is, Scott, Onauna, and myself, is that our statute requires us to have an annual report. And as you guys recall, that had been changed, included into OPSD's annual report. Regardless of whether OPSD has an annual report or not, we still have that requirement. So moving forward, we need an annual report. And it's on us to determine what that looks like, which we've been on a long journey. And I'm hopeful that we can really finalize that, at least for the time being, where we are as a council now. So I'll pause there if folks have any questions about our requirements, conversations with Scott or Onauna.
So what happened to the past year's report? Was it incorporated into the?
No, because there was no OPSD report.
We're like part of a bigger report.
We were, so that's this sort of chaos that we're trying to manage now. We were part, we did believe that OPSD had an annual report, and therefore very easy for the EAC annual report to be incorporated.
So we actually had a deadline, I thought.
Exactly, strict deadlines and
Right.
the whole 9.
Right.
But it has been confirmed that there is no annual report requirement that OPSD has. And so, and Scott's gonna stick to that.
Okay, and they're not gonna plan to do one.
They are not, and he made that very clear.
Okay.
So what does our statute say? That we owe a report to OPSD by a certain date for the legislature, or does it?
Yes, yes.
The intent
The audience is broad, but the requirement remains, right? Our target audience is the legislature, but
Is that in the statute or is that our interpretation?
no, that's really our interpretation.
So that could change. That focus could then change instead of something for the legislature, right? This could be something that we're writing for OPSD.
Exactly.
Just, I'm not saying you
No.
should, I'm just saying if that's not a statutory requirement, then now the door is even further open for what's in.
I think that is out, the audience is absolutely up for interpretation and up for our desire, right? Who do we want to reach? And being realistic about who are we really reaching with this, right? So yes. So really where we are is back to square one. Before we changed our statute 2+ years ago, right? And we're back to having really a standalone annual report. To answer your question though, Roy, it would be great today to get an update from Scott, if he's able to make it, on how he has disseminated the 2022 annual report. Yeah, and if he said that he's committed to doing that, I just don't know what those channels are, and we should. So totally encourage you to ask Scott that. Or I can.
If you look at the original language of the statute, it seems like we're supposed to make recommendations to the state. It doesn't say legislature, just state. Or the state on the status of the environmental protection, whatever, activities and all those things. So, yeah, if you read that, that seems to be the main objective.
Well, I think that, and I know that that's near and dear to your heart, is to make recommendations. I think that that statute has been interpreted a number of different ways, and I don't think recommendations are something that are off the table, but I also don't think that that's like signed, sealed, firm, what we need to do. The conversations that I had with Onana and Scott too, is a recognition of the reality of our council now and the evolution that it's taken. And not necessarily the council, but the staff support and budget support behind the council. That's very different now than it was even 4 years ago. And that may change again. But a recognition right now that we can, meet those broad requirements of the statute, while recognizing the reality of putting an annual report together, which is something that we've looked very closely at, even scratching altogether. So that kind of leads us to agenda item number 3. I want to give us as the committee and also the council this opportunity today, between this meeting and the council meeting, to finalize this discussion so we can move forward in a direction. And so the way I see that being most beneficial is us right now come up with a couple of recommendations. In my mind, I make up 2 recommendations that we can then share with the council later today, and the council can vote. So there's an opportunity for everybody on the council to weigh in on the direction of the annual report. And that was a process that Onana and Scott also thought was fair and was in line with the time that we have, given that it's already March.
So come up with 2 ideas, let me just say that, 2 ideas of format or content or all of it?
Not really format, I guess follows content, mostly content. Like, what do we want to share in this annual report? And recognizing that, those of us doing the work are going to put guardrails on things like format, like length, and how ambitious we're going to be. I really appreciated sticking with the roughly 2 pages. I also think that improves readability, and recognizing that this isn't something that necessarily rises to the priority of a lot of legislators. Keeping it short and sweet and concise and clear is a format that I think is going to serve us well. So I'd like to continue in that vein. I had two ideas. They're based on previous discussions that we've had as a committee. We don't have to go with these two, but just to get the conversation started. The first is a summary of our council's activities through the years, or through the year rather. And really hitting those highlights and potentially lowlights if you think there's value in those as well. So pretty much what we did in 2022. So that would be one direction we can go. The second came out at one of the strategic planning meetings that I went to recently, I think it was January, to get sort of the strat planning committee's ideas around what's our annual report gonna look like? What should it look like? What do we want it to look like? And as you can imagine, there are a number of different ideas. And one that really got a lot of support from the group, and I think it makes some sense too, is to pick a topic and really dive into it. And that topic would be aligned with INO forums, INO energy, what INO has kind of really focused on for the year. And I think at that strategic planning meeting, we talked about cesspools. Because obviously INO is going to be picking issues and ideas and topics that have broad touchdowns in the state. I'm not sure cesspools is what we would focus on for 2023. You know, with this whole chaos of do we have a report or do we not have a report, that had to get deprioritized. But nonetheless, this idea around digging into one topic that INO has spent time on.
And the report kind of would summarize or highlight what came out of those forums. So people came, people said these things, whatever.
I think also an opportunity to kind of, so example, take cesspools. What are those state departments? What's going really well in Hawaii with cesspools, for instance? And what are those agencies and departments that are doing great? And encouraging and highlighting that. So not grading, right? You are years away from the times when this council graded agencies, but in a way, highlighting good behavior. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. I think that something like that could be front or back loaded with a bit more context on what the EAC has done through the years. That might be a good, you know, kind of first paragraph, introductory, if you will, leading into, or a first couple of paragraphs leading into, you know, this particular issue. So thoughts on that, if there is another recommendation that we have. But again, my idea would be to present two recommendations for the council to vote on today.
Okay, yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and I kind of asked myself, why did I join council to begin with? It's really to help the environment. Then I thought, well, the annual report would be a great way to, provide guidance on how to help the environment, but obviously nobody reads the annual report. I mean, we spent so much effort like on the DOT one, and nothing really came out of it when I think back. So we put together all the information, we didn't get much feedback. I don't know if anybody really read it. So anyway, but when I look at the overall environmental situation, I feel that the state, maybe city too, lacks guidance. There's so many different issues, environmental issues, watersheds, cesspools, whatever, injection wells, I mean the water pollution fields. I see a lack of overall priority setting. So, and that used to be done before by DOH under the environmental planning office and cooperation with environmental groups and so on. Now everybody's kind of off on their own. It's not all. Everybody's doing their own thing, and then the folks that have the biggest voice are the environmental groups, you know, they don't like cesspools. They make it a big issue from a wastewater engineer standpoint, you know, I feel we have bigger issues. It's the watershed, all the sediments, all the, you know, groundwater affecting the corals, maybe overfishing and so on. So again, you know, the cesspool is a $2-3 billion problem. Or, you know, it's a huge cost. I think that money could be better spent on watersheds and other things. So I think that's where the state is listening more to the environmental groups, local ones, than engineers and scientists. And the engineers, it's our fault. We don't get to the legislature and all that, but we know what's going on, and my colleagues are just totally upset of the direction of things. So I think what's important is I think we need more awareness on priority setting, get more input from the environmental groups. And get everybody collaborating, not suing everybody, and so on. So engineers, you know, the government has to be sued once in a while, but it's kind of more productive to work together. And that happened previously. I used to see it. Now it's tough.
There's
So-
nothing you've said that I don't disagree
Okay,
with.
so
because
anyway, I
Christians
think
have-
really the priority is we should push for some overall better direction in setting priorities. And that'll be my recommendation. If I can see that happen, I'll be totally happy, you know. But it's, you know, I think everybody needs to look at the priorities. And if you're gonna compare, say, water pollution and say nutrients are the issue, you gotta know how much nutrients are coming from the watershed versus you know, cesspools. I don't think we have a good handle. You know, I've done a lot of work on cesspools, and that's why I wrote that article that kind of got shot down. You went around the show. I wrote an article for an annual report that blocked. And it was too controversial. So okay. So
I think,
anyway, so that's what I'm saying. I think we just need to have a better overall state program setting priorities and doing the necessary research and putting the money where it does the most good, basically.
Amen.
yeah, also completely agree, but I think for me, it comes back to who's reading this, who are we
Exactly.
writing it
Right.
for? And if
So
we're
that's
writing
the
it,
second part. you know.
right, so if we're writing it, Scott, or we're writing it for the director of OPSD, that's one thing. If we're writing it for legislatures, that's a different, you know, we've got different messages depending on whose desk this lands on. And so what problems can we solve depends on, not that we're gonna solve them, but what suggestions or recommendations we can come up with as a council. And I think that has to be tailored to.
So that's where the I&O committee comes in, to publicize it, have meetings, presentations, and so on.
So agreed, and I really appreciate both of the points you all make. And I think the answer to your question, Michelle, is very few people read this, right? I don't think we need to convince Scott of our worth. Which may not have been the case with directors past, but certainly not with Scott. I'm not sure, again, how many readers within the ledge look at this. I do think there's value in having something written that we can share with the likes of Nicole Owen and Senator Gabbard and their close colleagues and others perhaps. And given that, you know, those in the community, right? What do you guys do? How can you help? This is what we did, right, in 2022. So, you know, I'm tending to lean on a summary because I think we can get the best of both worlds. We can, you know, in the 2022 summary or annual report, we summarized every committee essentially. And I think it did a fantastic job of showcasing in particular all the work the exemptions committee has done, which is a huge lift for a volunteer report. It blows my mind. So
And I think I agree completely. I think the summary is a record of what it did, but I think taking what Roy said, I think you could wrap each committee summary up with a recommendation or a lesson learned or so that each committee it isn't just, it's a summary and then a one-liner, just like a you know, whatever that committee comes out wanting to say to Scott, you know, this year we learned, this year we need. Next year we wanna, you know, something like that, I think might just give it a little more like, rather than like, here's our report card.
Or
Give
you
it a
could have
grade.
just two separate sections. They've done that in the past. They summarize what they did and then they highlight certain issues. So I think that'll be fun.
I think then you get a little more
Yeah.
than just a summary that everybody.
Yeah, I like that, the ask, the takeaway.
Right,
Yeah.
what's the takeaway
Yeah.
from the year? You can say, we did a wonderful job, or next year, we'd like to target, you know,
Yeah,
12 more county agencies for
Yeah.
exemption lists, or really hoping.
Yeah.
Whatever each committee can come out with. And that way. Yeah, we're sending a message, sending little bite-sized messages that are not, you know, a big lift for anyone from our committee to do.
We did that in one of our reports, remember, we had such a hard time collating everything.
oh god,
This one, yeah,
we did the summary, yeah, the survey.
yeah.
Yeah. So crazy one.
Yeah, we just picked the different agencies to see what we have accomplished and stuff like that.
But the bottom line is people don't read it. I don't know what they do with the information. It's good information, but if nobody does anything with it, you kind of waste your effort.
Sort of in dilemma, because why we even have that statute when we can't put it, there's no house for it, you know.
Well, exactly, and that, you know, is an issue we've gone back and forth with, and my, you know, recommendation, having been on the annual report with you, Tessie too, I think, right, since I've been on this committee, so this is like year 7. Is really questioning why we're putting energy into something that likely has so little value when our energies could be put elsewhere. And that was the motivation behind, you know, appealing to senators, to Lowen and Gabbard, to change the statute. And there were some members of our council who felt incredibly strongly that the AR continued. And so that's why it's continued.
But we didn't know when we changed to OSPD that OSPD doesn't have an annual report. For our report to be included, and so it's like,
Exactly.
So if it's a message, you know, maybe by doing a 1 paragraph thing, we're making it almost like a reflective document. So it's less maybe about, I mean, yes, it's communicating to Scott or it's communicating to a PSD, whoever the director is, this is what we did this year. But it's also a chance for each committee either to set a goal or to, you know, so then we're sort of, I understand that it had a different, you know, focus and audience in the past. Now we have this basic requirement, why not make it work for us, you know, and use it as a summary document, you know, for the year, plus a goal, plus a lesson learned, plus we're writing these policies and procedures. This is a way to communicate, this is what came out of this year, not just what we did, but what we learned from this year. So make it reflective, and then the document works for us. Then it's not just, oh, but nobody looked at, well, we looked at it, we pulled our work together, and we put this document together that says this is what we did. And that can benefits for other EAC members to look back at and have something to say, oh, this is what they did this year, this is where they came along in this process, you know, this is what they learned this year, and it's useful to ourselves, you know, future committee members, our council.
Yeah, and with that sort of takeaway or ask or target, it's also guiding to a certain extent, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Seems like with so much change that's happened in the last year, we're looking for for the path forward, and maybe this will help us, you know, with the strategic planning, you know, help us focus each committee a little bit.
yeah, agreed. And so in that situation, I'm just thinking about the process for that. Last year, we asked each committee chair to provide just a short paragraph, short summary, couple sentences even in some cases, of their sort of annual highlights. And I could see us doing the exact same thing this year in this particular situation and, you know, tacking on to that, again, this target takeaway. And that, you know, that would then leave us to put it together, make it flow, and, you know, some intro and ending, which seems to be within our ability. How does that sound?
I guess in the end, everything's kind of just diluted, and I don't know what happens to all those. Again, you know, I'm looking for actual results on how we can improve the environment or take action. And I think a lot of it is not really the legislature at this point. I think we need a champion in state government. I think Scott might be the one, you know, to say we need priorities, you know, it's planning, Office of Planning, sustainability. So we need a champion in the government, and then, you know, so that's my recommendation. We need to find a champion, maybe in state government, maybe not necessarily just.
I agree with you, but share with me the role of the AR in that.
So let's say
Do you want that? Are you suggesting that should be in the annual
kind
report?
of be a theme. This is our assessment of today's situation, and this is our recommendation. We need direction, priorities, champion, something, you know, and that can be 2-page, hard-hitting 2-page. And then you can also have the summary of what the, you know, different committees did. I think we need some kind of central theme that will resonate with people.
Well, you know, do you recall this annual report, Roy, 2022's annual report? There was, you know, as all good documents, there was a bit of a call to action at the end there.
Yeah,
And I think that there is definite opportunity for something like that.
yeah. So if we can back it up, and I think the cesspool is kind of a good example how, you know, we're letting one issue just, you know, suck up all the funds, which, you know, maybe we should be looking at other things. So
I think there'll be a challenge though, for the annual report to generate that as a committee, when I think if you asked every person on the council who cares deeply about the environment to write a 2-page
yeah,
strong recommendation, no two would be on the same
just
topic.
one paragraph, and you can
I understand. I'm just saying, I think it's hard, the annual report is a hard vehicle, a difficult vehicle for that. Because we would have to reach consensus, and that would be outside of any of the individual, you know, committee responsibilities.
So
We haven't, we've never reached consensus, right? Like, well, there, but like for all of us to say, yes, that's our one priority.
yeah,
So that's been part of
yeah,
it.
sure, but I think we
Right?
should try. Let's try.
But the annual report being a vehicle for that means then we have to host that discussion in
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
council.
so let's do it today.
You want us to host today?
But just get opinions of, like you said, what should we cover? What can we do to make it meaningful?
Well, here's my thing. I don't want to keep having that conversation. We have that conversation a lot and I am tired of it. And I'm the one having to lead it. And what it does is it takes away time from us getting this work done. So the point with the recommendations that we are going to take to the council today is to very clearly give the council 2 choices that they can then pick from. That, in my head, offers the opportunity for choice and outreach within the council, but with clear boundaries. Because what will happen is if we go to the council today and ask people what they think should be in the annual report, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting, which are all good ideas, but very disparate. And the reality of actually taking those ideas and making something meaningful and impactful has proven to be impossible with our current situation. So I think, Roy, there is an opportunity to nudge certain ideas around environmental priority setting and impact. Those go without saying. We need that, right? But in terms of saying this is our council's primary recommendation moving forward for the year, we're not gonna use that kind of strong language. Because to do that, we'd have to do this whole outreach thing with the council.
So same thing, if you suggest successful, that's kind of focusing on one topic. But since I'm saying let's step back and, keep it a little bit more general.
Well, if it was a topic, so that was like the second option, which is to pick a topic that comes out of an INO
Right,
forum.
exactly.
Then we can riff as a council on not just the outcome of the forum, but our experience on the topic. We could write a whole thing. That sounds like a lot more work.
Totally.
Seems like to get consensus on, okay, a summary of what comes out of a forum, that's easy to do, relatively straightforward, but then to try to reach consensus and for everybody to go off, with their priorities and try to come to one uniform recommendation, I see that as taking a lot of the council's time.
So my general recommendation is just to step back and have. The direction I want to see is just for folks to realize that we need to set priorities. I'm not saying do this, do that, I'm just saying, let's step back and reassess how we make environmental decisions.
How is strategic planning, do you have?
Yeah.
Because to me, it benefits in the strategic planning discussion for the council's direction as opposed to the annual report, unless.
Well, that has the time and the place to really dig through that, right? And so I could see that being couched, Roy, in the annual report under the strategic planning's work.
Yeah, so I'm saying work together.
Yeah, that.
Okay, so in my head, I was thinking two options to provide the opportunity of choice. But I'm really sort of hesitant after this discussion to give the option, to do a single, let's all choose a single topic, right, based on INO. I agree with you, Michelle. I could see that as being a long, drawn out, difficult discussion. If I had my one, what I'd like to do is just say, this is what the INO this is what AR recommends, is that we really follow suit in 2022 with a summary, but with a little more meat behind it. And that's our recommendation. And then they can vote on it. And I guess that's the recommendation. They can vote yes, they can vote no.
It's like an EA, you have the action alternative and the no action.
Right.
Presented with one
Okay,
action.
so I would be willing to just write a 2-page statement. I mean, if you don't want to use it, that's fine, but at least I can say, well, I have my I said what I thought. I can do it, but
Sure too, I think. I got it a little late,
Yeah.
but
yes, I can turn that into a short page statement.
what is this 2-page thing though, right?
Well, it's basically to say that we need to kind of step back, look at our priorities.
Can I make a recommendation? Can you work through that and socialize that in strategic planning
Sure.
and incorporate that into strategic planning summary that then gets folded into the annual report?
Well, maybe you prepare something, you can work together.
Sorry, what was that? That you'll work together with strategic
Well,
planning?
I'll come up with something and, both communities can look at it, decide how to. We didn't have a strategic planning meeting too.
Yeah. But you will, I mean,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, we have time.
Robin's pretty great
Yeah.
about, so I think my preference is to socialize that within strat planning and account. The committee can, AR can have a look at that and move forward. Okay, so how are we feeling with just giving one recommendation and their choice is yes or no?
Yes.
How are you feeling about
Kind
that?
of like to just open up a little bit at least. And the intent for this, I thought was to just get input.
No, we've been getting input forever, and it has not led to any direction. So this is not meant to be draconian.
Yeah, it's,
There will be
yeah,
a discussion, right? And no doubt the council's discussion today will make our recommendation better and stronger. But at the end of the day, the vote is to move forward with the recommendation with likely amendments, right? So based on people's input, or to not move forward with the recommendation. And are we comfortable with that?
I think where we can take input too is on that sort of takeaway, is the
Yeah.
takeaway. I think that that's a place to sort of limit the discussion. Do we want it to be forward looking, and do we want each committee to develop their own, just depending on it? You know, maybe it's better to be uniform. Whether it's a takeaway or a look forward or a. Maybe that's where we limit the discussion to sort of that final sentence, considering this is landing on the director's desk.
Yeah.
Understanding that if it's landing on the director's desk and we don't know yet where else it will go, then it should be for the director's eyes. Then it's up to the director whether there's something actionable for the director or not.
Yeah.
But we know for certain it's a reflective document for us. Whatever happens after it goes to Scott's desk, we know it summarizes what we did this year, what we learned, and where we're going.
so are we dismissing the cesspool issue or how's that gonna be handled?
So to be clear, that was just an example of, to my knowledge, INO has not had a forum on cesspools, correct? Nor do I think they have one planned for cesspools. So
The option was just that it'd be a one topic AR. And
So yeah, just deciding that topic would be a,
I think that would take us all year.
yeah. So we want to,
so we're not gonna do the one topic.
Right,
The recommendation, and maybe we can all wordsmith it right now. That we are going to take to the full committee, is that we recommend, that the 2023 annual report really follow in many ways the 2022 annual report as a summary of our work and achievements. I'm just wordsmithing, so I mean, I'm just.
the addition of,
I think that issue.
Wait, and with the addition of,
for each committee, a concluding or a forward-looking statement.
There's some.
Mhm. Whether it's using them, whether that's an opportunity to look to the future
Right.
or a lesson learned.
Yeah. right, or target,
Target. At the end of the year, we sort of set our New Year's intentions, right? We set our, or we're guiding, the next year.
right, okay. Okay, thank you. Roy? What did
Yeah, I
you?
think the main concern I have is that if you look at the statute, it doesn't really doesn't seem to satisfy the statute. That was,
In the sense that it doesn't come with a recommendation.
Right.
Right, but knowing now that it may not go to the legislature or has no vehicle unless,
it still should go to the department heads and so on.
right, but if Scott just puts a memo, on top and says, here, this is from the council. Like we're saying, how many desks does that reach, how many people read it? I don't think anyone disagrees
so-
with the
so-
message, it's just, is this the vehicle that is gonna get it seen to make that change?
I guess my vision is that Scott reads something that's very useful and impactful. And we'll see, this is the direction we need to go in. That's my vision, but
Sure, well, don't you think we can get that with the current
maybe,
with the target, right? With that forward-looking
Yeah.
target,
I think that's the key.
right? I think
But-
to me,
but
that
there-
would be a
yeah.
great cheat sheet for Scott to look and
so
be
there-
like,
Those are bolded sentences at the end of each
Yeah.
committee summary, he
Yeah.
can just bold, this is what we're doing, this is what we need, this is where we're headed.
So the issue is if you have every committee giving a recommendation, then everything gets diluted. You have one central team that everybody can.
Each committee is such a different mission
Yeah,
or a
but-
different
we're not gonna get
objective.
there. You're really like,
I mean, I'm not sure, like, what would legislative come out with, I mean, in terms of what they
Okay,
do.
so the state of vision is we need to set environmental priorities. So each department should get together and say, well, this is our priority, and then somebody has to decide, okay, this is the most important, that's where we're gonna put the money. Legislatures have to say, well, okay, we're gonna commit to this vision and we're gonna fund it, you know. So everything kind of works out. Everybody's supporting each other, everybody goes in the same direction. Right now, every department wants their own thing, they're working in their silos, and nobody knows what's more important. The same thing with the city. They
I'm
have,
sorry,
yeah,
I'm
okay.
so sorry, we don't have time.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying. And I do not think we are going to get to the point in the annual report that we are going to have a single unifying focused recommendation from the
So
council.
my suggestion is, I'll write something simple, one, 2 pages.
But Roy, it's coming from you.
Yeah,
This
and
needs
if
to
everybody
be
disagrees,
outreach to
fine.
everybody.
I just say if everybody disagrees, fine, you know? At least I tried.
I think suggestion of bringing into strategic planning and saying, you know, there's a desire from, if this is true from the council, to discuss environmental priorities for the state, then that would open a council-wide discussion through strategic planning to have a discussion about how this council can help set the state's environmental priorities. I think you've got to work it through there, because coming at it from here is one person. So in order to engage the whole council, which I think is an important issue on this, it's got to be worked through strategic planning to bring it up to the council in that committee's
Yeah,
context.
so one.
I agree, and I also think that this is super valuable and it may take a while. Right, so earmarking that as needing to be in the 2023 annual report, which is a very definite timeline, just might not be helpful, right? But it's a valid conversation that can incubate within strategic planning.
One thing that people did express support for was the Department of Environment, so people to support that bill, strategic planning said they'll support and so on. So the reason for Department of Environment is that you have one department looking at all the environmental issues, the budget can be prioritized and so on. So I know the council in the past have supported the Department of Environment.
I think it's a conversation well worth having, but not in the context of the report having one message, but in the sense of bringing these issues up to the council through the strategic planning, like Steph said, running that through the committee to bring it to the council as a discussion through there. It's a way we can get everybody engaged in that conversation, and yeah, maybe that becomes an important issue that we all get to weigh in on and identify those. But
I think the bill might be dead though.
But yeah, and then that gives the time and the space and the opportunity to really chew on it as a council, right? So fully support you bringing that up within strategic planning. And if this is potentially a multi-year effort, which I could see happening, particularly now that we have Scott's leadership, I think it makes a lot of sense for, let's just say, in this 2023 annual report, it's discussed under strategic planning. But maybe next year, or the following year, it's something that we've really been able to give it the time to the point where we're able to say something more strongly around full council recommendation and weigh in.
maybe through those discussions, we find, based on everybody's different experience, the most effective way to get that message out. And it's not an annual report. Maybe it's doing other
Yeah,
kind
it
of
has to be
work.
way more than that.
Exactly, that's what we're saying, right? The annual report is not the vehicle, that is a big message and a big goal, and I think, yeah, everybody in this room would be interested in talking about this and weighing in on it, or, you know, as part of the council. And so,
It's such that the state's department is.
Okay, that was great. Thank you, everyone, for input. Just to ensure that we are all on the same page, we are gonna make a single recommendation to the full council today. That the 2023 annual report follow very similar to the 22 annual report as a summary of our work and achievements, with the addition of each committee having a concluding statement or statements focused on a lesson learned or a future target.
to further explain, this is guided by the fact that we don't know where this, right? We know that the report will go to the director, but the benefit of structuring it this way, and maybe we sell it a little bit.
Right.
Is that by it being a reflective document, it helps our own council,
Right,
right, so just selling. So you can go back and watch all the videos and see what we talked about over the last year, or you can read our handy and
Will be traumatic.
okay. Thank you, everyone. I think if there are no other comments, we can adjourn. Okay, adjourn at 12:48.